All right, we're continuing in this speech that the Lubavitcher Rebbe gave in 1991, Tafshin Nun Aleph. And it happened to be that the calendar came out exactly like this year. Namely, that the 10th day of the month of Tamuz, we're now in the Jewish holiday of Tamuz, the 10th day of Tamuz fell out on Shabbat, the 7th day of the week, Shabbat. And which that means that next week, the 17th day of Tamuz, which is a fast day, terrible day, the day that Moses broke the tablets, also comes out on Shabbat. And because it comes out on Shabbat, we don't fast. So the Rebbe explained that now we're on the 10th paragraph. In the previous 9 paragraphs, the Rebbe explained what the implications of this are, not just theoretically or poetically or metaphorically, but actually, that in fact, the Jewish people are here in the world, as we just finished learning in the Mimer, in order to improve the world, to make the world a healthy place, to bring back the soul into the body of the world, that we see that everything is a miracle and that everything has a purpose, and that everything is saying something about God. Every blade of grass, every wind, every atom, every planet, every molecule, every grain of sand, etc. And that's our job, is to reveal it. So now the Rebbe is really getting down into it. Now we have to realize we're talking about here in this Torah portion, which is called Balak. And Balak hired this evil person who symbolizes the essence of evil in the world. In other words, the lowest you could possibly go in the world. That he loved death and destruction and licentiousness and pretty much everything that's happening now in America. You know, Bilam was the how do you say, he was all for purveyor. Oh, I think that's the word. There's a better word. But anyway, this Bilam, he knew how to curse, and he was a pleasure seeker, and he was rich, and he wanted money, and he wanted power, and he wanted pleasure, and he wanted freedom, and he wanted death, wanted love to kill people, just really hated life. So, and it ended up that that's the opposite of Judaism. And he was chosen to curse the Jews, and all of a sudden came these blessings from Bilam. And the clearest prophecies about Moshiach in the Torah come from Bilam. And how God is never going to leave the Jews, and the Jews are the blessing. And anybody who curses the Jews gets cursed, and anyone who blesses them gets blessed. So another thing also happened over there. We learned about this also last week. Also happened in this month, between this Shabbat, the 10th day of Tammuz, and the 17th day of Tammuz, which the Rebbe said symbolizes or is an example of the purpose of the Jews in the world, to transform bad into good, according to the Torah, of course, according to the Torah. So between this is what's called the 12th and the 13th day of Tammuz. Now, the 12th day and 13th day of Tammuz, it's probably not on your calendar, but it's probably the most important day in at least the modern history of the world, and it could be all the history of the world. Why? What's the big deal? Whole history of the world, nobody knows about it. So important. So it says that was the day that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe got out of communist prison. Okay, what's the big deal about that? Getting out of prison is a very good thing, Mazel tov to the Chabad people. But what's the whole world? It says, well, first of all, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe was the only person, as far as I know in history, in Russia to actually actively, in thought, speech, and action, to oppose communism, the communist government and the communist philosophy in general. How? By spreading Judaism. Judaism is the opposite of communism. Communism says, don't rely on God, only man. Everyone is equal. Everyone will receive equally. The government will take care of you. We'll take care of you. We'll assure that there's going to be equality. And Judaism says every man for himself. Every man is different. Every person is unique. Every man, God created everybody that way. But you have to use your uniqueness to serve the Creator, according to the Torah. But there's supposed to be rich people and there's supposed to be poor people, and the rich people are supposed to give charity. That makes them even richer, even spiritually. It says the rich person by giving receives even more than the poor person does by receiving. Giving. The whole thing of communism is receiving. What you receive, you give to the government, and the government will take care of you. And Judaism, the whole thing is you give to God, and God will take care of you. But it has to be according to God's laws. God's laws, you can't be licentious. According to communism, everything goes. Basically, it broke up the whole family, destroyed morals. They killed tens of millions of people. So here we have one person. All the other Jews, there were Jews in secret that they did. The Rebbe did everything. And he say, and of course, in secret, he was no fool. But there was tens, hundreds. We don't even know how many schools that the previous Rebbe established, Torah schools in Russia, where 5 children learned in a basement. And that was like right in Stalin's face. Stalin was killing people right and left, and he sentenced the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. He was sentenced to death, and he said, "I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of." He didn't pay an attention even in prison to his captors. Was not afraid of them at all. He didn't want it to show any fear whatsoever for evil, and it transformed. Not only did they let him out, they pushed him out. They helped him to get out. They evicted him from Russia with all of his books. He said, "I'm not leaving unless you give me my books." Whole thousands and thousands of books they let out with him. And even more, it says that originally when they told him he was free and that he could leave prison, that was like 9 days before this, he said, it was 10 days before, he said, "I'm not leaving," because it was on Friday. And he said, "If I leave, I'm going to have to travel on Shabbat, and I'm not traveling on Shabbat, even to get out of the prison where they could kill him any second." He said, "I'm not going to in any way make even the slightest change in Judaism, even though according to the law it would be okay. I'm not going to let anybody think that you people are having any effect on me." And he got out of this, and the Rebbe said, what is it, the 60 years, the 50 years later, the whole entire communism fell. That was happening on Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tamuz. Communism was the biggest anti-God force in the world. They're trying to bring it back, but in America, but it's not, it won't work. In any case, the 12th and the 13th day of Tamuz, Shenitosef, this was especially the thing of spreading out Judaism outward. Ad Shezeh, this, the Meiser, that his imprisonment and his redemption, Hevi, came to Yetzirah's Balagula, that the previous Rebbe got out from Russia, and after a whole other chain of events, he came to America. First of all, he came to Latvia, and then he was in Poland. This added on in the revelation of the inside of the Torah in a way of spreading out Torah even more than all the generations before him together. Right? Beforehand, the Hasidut, Chabad, and all these ideas were locked in Russia. And now, since the Rebbe got out from imprisonment and he went eventually 10 years later, a little bit more, 10 years later, to America, as because of that, it ended up being 13 years later. He came to America as that his last 10 years of his life was in America, spreading out Judaism in a way that's never been done before in the history of the world. Spreading out Judaism to places that were nothing further away from Judaism. The most distant places and the most distant and disenfranchised Jews, the Rebbe reached. The revelation of this inside of the Torah is drawn down in a way that it continues and continues by means of his pupils and the pupils of his pupils. The Lubavitcher Rebbe already always said that he's just a continuer, he's just a continuation of the previous Rebbe. The previous Rebbe, he's the Rebbe. Kavod Kedushas Moriadmi, his honor, his holiness, my teacher, my father-in-law, Chami, his father-in-law, Admo. Nasi Dorenu, he's the leader of our generation. The Nasi is a call, and the Nasi is everything. Hu noten koach, he gives the power. The previous Lubavitcher Rebbe gives the power to all of the Jewish people. I had the picture. Where's my picture? Where did my picture go? I had a picture over here. Probably it's right in front of my eyes. I don't see it. Okay. All right, I had a picture over him of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. All right. That the Nasi is everything. Ubafran, and especially by means of his pupils that saw him physically, face to face, seeing the face of a tzaddik and the leader of the generation, this has a tremendous effect until it's recognized and you can see in them that they saw the Rebbe. You can see in their faces and their eyes what they saw. Oh, here's the picture of the previous Rebbe. Here we go. Nice picture of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe for all to see. Here we go. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. I'm sure there's more. Oh. There we go. Huh? Picture. It's so clear, but there it is. Yeah. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. There's a lot of pictures of him also. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. That's it. He was the Rebbe. He was 10 years in Russia, 10 years in Poland, 10 years in America. When he got to America, he changed. He came in a wheelchair. He was already half paralyzed. And he changed the whole entire face of Judaism. The Rebbe said he was the Moshiach. Beautiful. Okay. Previous Lubavitcher Rebbe. There we go. Okay, but often the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe getting out of prison, this was really a modern day transforming Bilam. Bilam wanted to kill all the Jews, wanted to destroy the world. That's what Stalin wanted to do. And instead of that, it came out exactly the opposite. They released the Rebbe, and it came out a tremendous blessing from this. And especially in the latest, most recent years, Kafisha Roim Bapur, like we see, Shebeshani Macharonos, like in the last few years, Zechinu V'Pisu V'Omad Pisim, that we printed and we are continuing to print tremendous numbers of essays and speeches of Hasidut that were up to now just written by handwriting and revealed only to individuals. Until these things until now that were concealed and hidden from everybody, specifically now we're printing them, says the Rebbe, 1991. Happier the portion, blessed is the portion of those people that are doing all this work and bringing it from handwritten to being printed and etc. and printing the books and giving money to do it in their time. This is the revelation of the inside of the Torah and the secrets of the Torah. This gives power to reveal in the world at the inyanim shalamayla migidrei olam that are above the world. As we said before, remember that's the number 10. Remember we said the number 7 that corresponds to Shabbat. That's what God does. That's nature. And the number 10 is what we do, how we add on the 3 more. That's the powers of intellect. Chachma bina dat. That's the whole idea of the Chassidut. Chachma bina v'dat. Chachma is concept. Bina is understanding. Dat is realization. That everyone in the world will have a new concept of God. They'll be able to understand this concept of God, and they'll be able to realize this understanding in their day-to-day lives, in their hearts, in their minds. You do it like it says, that by means of revealing the teachings of Hasidut Chabad in general, and that explain Hamazbira Hasidut B'Seichel, that explains these ideas in human intelligence, until even the animal soul, your natural soul, can understand that God becomes a part of your day-to-day life, right? What does it mean that God is creating me? He's creating my house, and he's creating my children. It means that just space out. That's it. What does it mean? It says that's maybe what you might think it means in intellect, but the idea is to bring these ideas into day-to-day life so that it doesn't detract from anything. It doesn't negate anything. It just gives you a clearer picture of how dynamic you're supposed to be and how your own misconceptions about life and reality, that paralyzes you. That gives you less energy and makes you more afraid and more, how do you say, negative, and you don't want to go out of your comfort zone, and you'll make anything into your comfort zone if you don't have the proper picture of what God is. And that's what Hasidut does, is ideally gives everyone a proper picture about what God is, but in very great details. And it's not what you think. It's not that there's this big white light that you get after you die and you go up to heaven, or people have a big halo around their heads and they just float over the water or something like that. That's not that at all. A person feels godliness as he wants to get married, and he wants to have a family, and he wants to have a business, and he wants to give charity, and he wants to do the commandments, and he wants to help others, and he wants to be positive all the time. That's what it means, that you become activated. Like we said a lot of times, when a person feels godliness, take an example, a person that feels godliness all the time. King David, it says he was so active, he didn't even sleep. He used to sleep less than like 30 minutes or whatever every night. And Moses felt godliness. That's the example. Moses. It says Moses felt godliness. The last day of his life, he wrote 13 Sefer Torahs. I don't know how he did that. Led the Jewish people, never went to sleep. Ezekiel, the prophet Ezekiel, he brought Yechezkel. No, I'm sorry. Elijah, the prophet, right? Elijah, the prophet. He was active, running around, going. The prophet, the Ezekiel, was Chezkiel. He brought back to life 20,000 dry bones. That's what happens when you feel godliness. You feel alive. There's life. That's the idea of Hasidut Chabad, to bring life and positivity into the world, especially Kafish and Tosef in our last generations. We have a special power to make the world vessels for God, to make the world a positive, blessed, happy place. Ad until Sha'olam Yaseh, the world will be a dwelling for himself in the lower worlds. The actual world, there will be revealed godliness which is above the world until God's essence. Ubazen, and this Netosef Od Yoser, even more this year, that this year is the holiday of redemption, 12th and 13th day of Tamuz, is blessed from the Shabbat, which is the 10th day of Tamuz, which we said the number 10 shows on a completeness which is accomplished by the Jewish people, and it's Shabbos Parshas Chukat. This year it's not Chukat, it's Balak. And that it hints at joining these two things together, of the 7th, what God does, and the 10th, how we're supposed to add on godliness. That's Rotzai, going up to God, and Shu, bringing godliness down into the world. That's what we just said. Yisrael is going up to God, and Yaakov is bringing it down. But then the Mimer we just finished. Namely, world and godliness, which is above the world, should be together. Until Shazen said this becomes a preparation immediately for the true redemption. Like it's known that by spreading out Judaism, and by spreading out especially the secrets of Hasidut, this will bring Atimar. That's what the Baal Shem Tov had, this experience where he saw the chamber, he went up to the chamber of Moshiach, and the Moshiach said, I'm going to come and redeem the Jewish people in the whole world when the ideas of Hasidut are spread out. That's the Melech Mashiach. Like it will be the completion of joining the number 7 with the number 10. 7 is what God does, and number 10 is how well we add on to it and complete it. And this is the completion of the world as it is from the Creator. and the novelty in the world which comes by through our work. That's parrots, we said before. Okay, we'll do one more. We'll see how much we can get done. Because that from all this, we have to learn something practical. There must be some sort of a learning and some sort of a lesson for us in our day-to-day life. Like the Baal Shem Tov said, that from everything there is in the world, you have to learn how to serve God better. How much more so, b'kaviyos al pi Torah, if it's according to the Torah, namely this year came out that the 10th day of the month falls on the 7th day of the week. And this comes right before Shabbat, gives the blessing to Yud Gimel Tamuz, when the Rebbe got out. And the next Shabbat is the terrible fast day of the 17th of Tamuz, which gets pushed away, which we don't fast. We fast on another day. Especially this year when the 7th and the 10th come together. One of the things we can learn from this is like this. Every day, Tzarichem Lios, there has to be by every single Jew a double service of God. Two ways. Serving, first of all, in the ways of the week. Namely what? That you are in the world and reveal God in the world. And there also has to be the days of the month. Namely what? That you have to work in the world, but make something new to improve the world. Make something totally brand new in the world, more than what it was on the world on itself. In other words, first of all, you have to deal with the world as it is. Revealing godliness, be a good Jew in the world, and leave the world alone. Right? The world shouldn't have an effect on you, and you should be a good Jew in the world. The second way is that you should make something new in the world, improve the world. Encourage another Jew to put on tefillin, to learn a little more Torah. A non-Jew to think about the 7 Noahide commandments, how good God is, how much God loves him. That's what the Jews are chosen for, to tell the non-Jews how much God loves them. He's creating them, he's enlivening them. It makes each one individual, created in the image of God. Two things, in other words, to leave the world alone and just do in the world, Judaism in the world, be a good Jew in the world. You want to call it, hold on to your own. Then there's also changing the world. And these two services we can see in the service of a Jew every day. Immediately in the beginning of the day, the Jew says, Amorani, I'm grateful to you, God. Namely what? That the Jew says, thank you very much, God, that you gave me back my soul. That God gave me my soul, the same soul that was yesterday, and the same soul that was the day before. This is nature. Thank you, God, that you're keeping the world going. That I woke up in the morning, I'm still alive, I'm still a person. Kafi, according like God, mitnagim kol echad ve'echad, like God is natural with every Jew. Thank God I woke up this morning. Thank God I have eyes, I have ears. Similarly, as also every human being. In the morning he wakes up, gives thanks to God. This is the service of every Jew, namely that he serves God in a normal way. But then afterwards we say, Rabbe Emunatecha, God, your faith in me is great. This means what? Your faith in me is great to make a new world. This hints at the faith of God. Rabbe is great, above Rabbe, great, a great revelation of God, a great trust in God, that God trusts in me. This is to arouse a Jew, that a Jew should also be great, go above his normal ways of being. Don't be the same person you were yesterday, and don't leave the world the same world it was yesterday. So that's two ways. First of all, appreciate what there is in the world, and say, thank you, God, that you gave me back my soul, that I'm still alive. That's number one, appreciating. Number two is changing the world, making the world different. And even in a more general way, in the blessings of the morning. First of all, in the morning, you say that God is the king of the world. In nature, you gave the rooster understanding to discern between day and night. You opened up my eyes. You released my limbs. And then afterwards, you say the blessings on the Torah, that the Torah was before the world. First of all, you thank God for giving me the world, nature, that I have feet to walk with, I have ears to hear, eyes to see. Thank you. And then after that, we give God thanks for the Torah. And the Torah is dynamic. The Torah is above the world. Kamokain, similarly, there are, by every single Jew, two ways of serving God. One was beginning with yourself. A man is a small world. Each person encompasses himself as what do you call a microcosm of the world? Microcosm. This is avoda, the birur aguf v'chelka b'olam. This is refining your world, your part of yourself. Hakashurim izgalos the teva, namely the nature of the world. You do what you're supposed to do. And then there is learning Torah, doing the commandments. This means drawing godliness above the world. That's the number 10. Being natural in the world and thanking God for what he has in the world, that corresponds to the number 7. And increasing in the world by Torah and the commandments, that's the number 10. Kamuvan is understood also simply. Even a small child understands that he has to do these two types of service because every child has a body and a soul. Gufo, the body of a person, chai b'derech teva, is according to nature, eating, drinking. This goes according to the nature of the world. You should do exercises, you should do, be a healthy person. But on the other hand, there's a soul. And the soul is concealed on its own. You don't see the soul, you just feel you're alive, but you don't know what the soul is. A child, even a child, he feels that he's got some sort of a above nature power, some sort of a spiritual power that enlivens him. A child understands also that his body, because it's physical, so he sees physically with his eyes. Therefore, his body, because he can see it, must be limited in a certain way. This requires also mina misyamet. It has to have a certain amount of food and drink in order that it can live. It's limited, which is not the case. The soul which is spiritual, the soul which is especially the Jewish soul, which is a portion of God from above. A Jew has an additional soul on the spiritual soul. It's got a godly soul. As this soul, it's unlimited physically. Therefore, even a child understands that the service that a person does with his body, the body serving God, this is connected to the world. But the service that he does with his soul, this is without any limits at all. Kamokain, similarly, in the soul itself, there are different levels. The soul especially has, let's say, two levels, the inside of the soul and the outside of the soul. A child also can understand this, that things that are revealed to the soul, there are things which are relevant to the inside of the soul and the outside of the soul. Namely, there's certain things that a child really, really loves. He loves his parents, he loves his home, whatever. And there's things which are external, right? In the case of a normal child, to go to school, the inside of his soul, eating a nice, a popsicle or something. Ooh. There's things which are only relevant to the outside of his soul. He doesn't run after them so much that it could be even forgets them. And also, there's things which are relevant. Oh, he really wants these things, right? There's kids, the television program, I have to see this program. Bakach also been the service in the two souls of the soul. The outside of the soul, this is limited. This is in comparison to what's on the inside of the soul, which is above limitation, right? A child won't give his life for a candy, but it might be that he'll give his life for his parents. Could be. Alder says similarly also in the service of a Jew and the Torah and the commandments. There is a difference between the body of the Torah, the revealed Torah, that's limited, and the soul of the Torah, that's above limitation. Chassidut deals mostly with the unlimited part, the godly part of the Torah. Also the inside of the Torah, and in Chassidut itself, there's what's called the soul of the Torah, and what's called the soul of the Torah. Similarly, also in the commandments, there's the body of the commandments, the external, And then there's the soul of the commandments. You can't have one without the other. I mean, actually, you can. You can have the body of the soul of the commandments and just do it cold, like a cold fish, but you do what you're supposed to do. That's also something, but that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a body with a soul. Don't say you can just have the soul alone. That's not Judaism. Judaism says you have to have the commandments, you have to do them, but there has to be a soul inside of them. That's the soul of the commandments, the intention of the commandments. That's what we learned, remember, in the mimer in the morning about the spinal cord. That's the life inside of the commandments, the limbs of the body. That's like the commandments. Doing the commandments in a way which are above normal. In any case, all of these, we can learn something. That every day, we have to be aware of these two types of service of God, namely normal and above normal, simultaneously, joining both of them together. This is whether the service with the body, doing the commandments, doing exactly what God says, and with the soul, doing it in the way that God wants, in an infinite way. Whether we're talking about learning the regular, normal laws of the Torah, the Talmud, or whether we're talking about learning the inner ideas of the Torah, Chassidut, Kabbalah, whether we're talking about doing the commandments, talking about the intention of the commandments, all of them have to be together. The finite aspect, the limited aspect, and the unlimited aspect tomorrow. And we're going to have to finish this, God willing, tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll have a class also tomorrow at 8:15 in the morning. We'll finish this mimer, and maybe we'll start a new mimer. There's a letter also. We'll see what to do. We'll finish. We'll be able to fill up the half hour tomorrow morning with good, how do you say, geschmack hazachen, good things. Now we're also going to have a class today at 3:00. So tune in. Yesterday I made a class at 3:00, but I don't know what happened. I guess maybe I was tired. Maybe I don't know. In any case, I didn't record it, or it didn't get recorded. I can blame the computer because I was using a laptop. But I did re-record it later, sort of. And especially with that big Or HaChaim that talks about that sentence of Bilam, bring Moshiach, right? So we'll talk about, so you can look it up if you want to. You can look up online and find it. Meanwhile, have a good day. What's it? We have the Dvar, the Hayom Yom. We find that God's love for Abraham was because it said, God says, I love you because you will command your children and your household. Yitzaveh means command. That also means, Yitzaveh means to connect with God. All of Abraham's amazing service that he did, he circumcised himself, he took Yitzchak to sacrifice him. All these amazing services that he did for God can't be compared to his teaching others and bringing them into connection, namely bringing merit to other people, to connect them to the Creator. Teaching. Who says a thing like this? The Rebbe. The Rebbe is the Moshiach. The main thing of the Moshiach is teaching, educating the world what God is. Have a good day with Moshiach now. God willing, hope to see you at 3:00.